Chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, with 2 he flew. One called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. The foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. Then I said, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. He touched my mouth with it and said, Behold, this has touched your lips, and your iniquity is taken away, and your sin is forgiven. I heard the Lord's voice saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, Here I am, send me. He said, Go and tell this people, You hear indeed, but don't understand, and you see indeed, but don't perceive. Make the heart of this people fat, make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and turn again and be healed. Then I said, Lord, how long? He answered, Until cities are waste without inhabitant, and houses without man, and the land becomes utterly waste, and the Lord has removed men far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. If there are yet a tenth in it, it also shall be in turn eaten up. As a terebinth and as an oak whose stock remains when they are felled, so the holy seed is its stock. Chapter 7. It happened in the days of Ahaz the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah king of Judah, that Rezin the king of Syria, and Pekah the son of Remaliah king of Israel, went up to Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. It was told the house of David, saying, Syria is allied with Ephraim. His heart trembled, and the heart of his people, as the trees of the forest tremble with the wind. Then the Lord said to Isaiah, Go out now to meet Ahaz, you and Shear-Jashub your son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool, on the highway of the fuller's field. Tell him, Be careful and keep calm. Don't be afraid, neither let your heart be faint because of these 2 tails of smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin in Syria, and of the son of Remaliah. Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have plotted evil against you, saying, Let's go up against Judah and tear it apart, and let's divide it among ourselves, and set up a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabeel. This is what the Lord God says, It shall not stand, neither shall it happen. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years Ephraim shall be broken in pieces, so that it shall not be a people. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If you will not believe, surely you shall not be established. The Lord spoke again to Ahaz, saying, Ask a sign of the Lord your God. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. He said, Listen now, house of David. Is it not enough for you to try the patience of men, that you will try the patience of my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. He shall eat butter and honey when he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child knows to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land whose 2 kings you abhor shall be forsaken. The Lord will bring on you, on your people, and on your father's house, days that have not come, from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. It will happen in that day that the Lord will whistle for the fly that is in the uttermost parts of the rivers of Egypt, and for the bee that is in the land of Assyria. They shall come, and shall all rest in the desolate valleys, in the clefts of the rocks, on all thorn hedges, and on all pastures. In that day the Lord will shave with a razor that is hired in the parts beyond the river, even with the king of Assyria, the head and the hair of the feet, and it shall also consume the beard. It shall happen in that day that a man shall keep alive a young cow and 2 sheep, and it shall happen that because of the abundance of milk which they shall give he shall eat butter, for everyone will eat butter and honey that is left in the midst of the land. It will happen in that day that every place where there were 1,000 vines at 1,000 silver shekels shall be for briars and thorns. People will go there with arrows and with bow, because all the land will be briars and thorns. All the hills that were cultivated with the hoe, you shall not come there for fear of briars and thorns, but it shall be for the sending forth of oxen and for the treading of sheep. Chapter 8. The Lord said to me, Take a large tablet and write on it with a man's pen, for Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And I will take to me faithful witnesses to record, Uriah the priest, and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah. I went to the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. Then the Lord said to me, Call his name Maher Shalal Hashbaz, for before the child shall have knowledge to cry, My father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be carried away before the king of Assyria. The Lord spoke to me yet again, saying, Because this people have refused the waters of Shiloh to go softly, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, now therefore, behold, the Lord brings up on them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria, and all his glory. And it shall come up over all its channels, and go over all its banks, and it shall sweep onward into Judah. It shall overflow and pass through. It shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of its wings shall fill the breadth of your land, Emmanuel. Make an uproar, O you peoples, and be broken in pieces, and give ear, all of you far countries. Gird yourselves and be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves and be broken. Take counsel together, and it shall be brought to nothing. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. For the Lord spoke thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me not to walk in the way of this people, saying, Don't you say a conspiracy, concerning all whereof this people say a conspiracy. Neither fear their fear, nor be in dread of it. The Lord of hosts, him shall you sanctify, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. He shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense, to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Many shall stumble thereon, and fall, and be broken, and be snared, and be taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. I will wait for the Lord, who hides his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord has given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel, from the Lord of hosts, who dwells in Mount Zion. When they shall tell you, consult with those who have familiar spirits, and with the wizards who chirp and who mutter. Shouldn't a people consult with their God? On behalf of the living should they consult with the dead? To the law and to the testimony. If they don't speak according to this word, surely there is no mourning for them. They shall pass through it, sore distressed and hungry. And it shall happen that when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves, and curse by their king and by their God, and turn their faces upward. And they shall look to the earth and see distress and darkness, the gloom of anguish, and into thick darkness they shall be driven away. Chapter 9. But there shall be no gloom to her who was in anguish. In the former time he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the latter time has he made it glorious, by the way of the sea beyond Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in the land of the shadow of death, on them has the light shined. You have multiplied the nation. You have increased their joy. They joy before you, according to the joy in harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as in the day of Midian. For all the armor of the armed man in the tumult, and the garments rolled in blood shall be for burning, for fuel for fire. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there shall be no end, on the throne of David, and on his kingdom, to establish it, and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. The Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it has lighted on Israel. All the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, who say in pride and in arrogance of heart, The bricks are fallen, but we will build with hewn stone. The sycamores are cut down, but we will put cedars in their place. Therefore the Lord will set up on high against him the adversaries of Rezin, and will stir up his enemies. The Syrians before, and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with open mouth. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Yet the people have not turned to him who struck them, neither have they sought the Lord of hosts. Therefore the Lord will cut off from Israel head and tail, palm branch and rush in one day. The elder and the honorable man, he is the head, and the prophet who teaches lies, he is the tail. For those who lead this people cause them to err, and those who are led of them are destroyed. Therefore the Lord will not rejoice over their young men, neither will he have compassion on their fatherless and widows, for everyone is profane and an evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burns as the fire, it devours the briars and thorns, yes, it kindles in the thickets of the forest, and they roll upward in a column of smoke. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land burnt up, and the people are as the fuel of fire. No man spares his brother. One shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh Ephraim, and Ephraim Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Chapter 10. Woe to those who decree unrighteous decrees, and to the writers who write perverseness, to turn aside the needy from justice, and to rob the poor of my people of their right, that widows may be their spoil, and that they may make the fatherless their prey. What will you do in the day of visitation, and in the desolation which shall come from far? To whom will you flee for help, and where will you leave your glory? They shall only bow down under the prisoners, and shall fall under the slain. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Woe, Assyrian, rod of my anger, the staff in whose hand is my indignation! I will send him against a profane nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, to take the spoil, and to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. However, he doesn't mean so, neither does his heart think so, but it is in his heart to destroy, and to cut off not a few nations. For he says, Aren't my princes all of them kings? Isn't Calno as Carchemish? Isn't Hamath as Arpad? Isn't Samaria as Damascus? As my hand has found the kingdoms of the idols, whose engraved images did excel them of Jerusalem and of Samaria, shall I not, as I have done to Samaria and her idols, so do to Jerusalem and her idols? Therefore it shall happen, that when the Lord has performed his whole work on Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, I will punish the fruit of the stout heart of the king of Assyria, and the glory of his high looks. For he has said, By the strength of my hand I have done it, and by my wisdom, for I have understanding, and I have removed the bounds of the peoples, and have robbed their treasuries, and like a valiant man I have brought down those who sit on thrones, and my hand has found as a nest the riches of the peoples, and as one gathers eggs that are forsaken, I have gathered all the earth, and there was none that moved the wing, or that opened the mouth, or chirped. Shall the axe boast itself against him who hews with it? Shall the saw magnify itself against him who holds it? As if a rod should wield those who lift it up, or as if a staff should lift up him who is not wood. Therefore the Lord of hosts, will send among his fat ones leanness, and under his glory there shall be kindled a burning like the burning of fire. The light of Israel will be for a fire, and his Holy One for a flame, and it will burn and devour his thorns and his briars in one day. He will consume the glory of his forest, and of his fruitful field, both soul and body, and it shall be as when a standard-bearer faints. The remnant of the trees of his forest shall be few, so that a child may write them. It shall come to pass in that day, that the remnant of Israel, and those who are escaped of the house of Jacob, shall no more lean on him who struck them, but shall lean on the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. A remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, to the mighty God. For though your people Israel be as the sand of the sea, only a remnant of them shall return. A destruction is determined, overflowing with righteousness. For a full end, and that determined, will the Lord of hosts, make in the midst of all the earth. Therefore thus says the Lord of hosts, my people who dwell in Zion, don't be afraid of the Assyrian, though he strike you with the rod, and lift up his staff against you after the manner of Egypt. For yet a very little while, and the indignation against you shall be accomplished, and my anger shall be directed to his destruction. The Lord of hosts will stir up against him a scourge, as in the slaughter of Midian at the rock of Oreb, and his rod will be over the sea, and he will lift it up after the manner of Egypt. It shall happen in that day, that his burden shall depart from off your shoulder, and his yoke from off your neck, and the yoke shall be destroyed by reason of fatness. He has come to Aiath, he has passed through Migron. At Michmash he lays up his baggage. They are gone over the pass. They have taken up their lodging at Geba. Ramah trembles, Gibeah of Saul is fled. Cry aloud with your voice, daughter of Galim. Listen, Laisha, you poor Anathoth. Madmenah is a fugitive. The inhabitants of Gebam flee for safety. This very day shall he halt at Nob. He shakes his hand at the mountain of the daughter of Zion, the hill of Jerusalem. Behold, the Lord of hosts will lop the bows with terror, and the high of stature shall be hewn down, and the lofty shall be brought low. He will cut down the thickets of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one.
It is doubtless not profitable for me to boast, for I will come to visions and revelations of the Lord. I know a man in Christ 14 years ago, whether in the body I don't know, or whether out of the body I don't know, God knows. Such a one caught up into the third heaven. I know such a man, whether in the body or outside of the body I don't know, God knows, how he was caught up into paradise, and heard unspeakable words, which is not lawful for a man to utter. On behalf of such a one I will boast, but on my own behalf I will not boast, except in my weaknesses. For if I would desire to boast, I would not be foolish, for I will speak the truth. But I forbear, so that no man may account of me above that which he sees in me, or hears from me. By reason of the exceeding greatness of the revelations, that I should not be exalted excessively, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, that I should not be exalted excessively. Concerning this thing, I begged the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. He has said to me, My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather glory in my weaknesses, that the power of Christ may rest on me. Therefore I take pleasure in weaknesses, in injuries, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. I have become foolish in boasting. You compelled me, for I ought to have been commended by you. For in nothing was I behind the very best apostles, though I am nothing. Truly the signs of an apostle were worked among you in all patience, in signs and wonders and mighty works. For what is there in which you were made inferior to the rest of the assemblies, unless it is that I myself was not a burden to you? Forgive me this wrong. Behold, this is the third time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be a burden to you, for I seek not your possessions, but you. For the children ought not to save up for the parents, but the parents for the children. I will most gladly spend and be spent for your souls. If I love you more abundantly, am I loved the less? But be it so. I did not myself burden you, but, being crafty, I caught you with deception. Did I take advantage of you by any one of them whom I have sent to you? I exhorted Titus, and I sent the brother with him. Did Titus take any advantage of you? Didn't we walk in the same spirit? Didn't we walk in the same steps? Again, do you think that we are excusing ourselves to you? In the sight of God we speak in Christ, but all things, beloved, are for your edifying. For I am afraid that by any means, when I come, I might find you not the way I want to, and that I might be found by you as you don't desire. That by any means there would be strife, jealousy, outburst of anger, faction, slander, whisperings, proud thoughts, riots. That again when I come, my God would humble me before you, and I would mourn for many of those who have sinned before now, and not repented of the uncleanness and sexual immorality and lustfulness which they committed.
Psalm 54. For the chief musician on stringed instruments, a contemplation by David, when the Ziphites came and said to Saul, Isn't David hiding himself among us? Save me, God, by your name. Vindicate me in your might. Hear my prayer, God. Listen to the words of my mouth. For strangers have risen up against me. Violent men have sought after my soul. They haven't set God before them. Behold, God is my helper. The Lord is the one who sustains my soul. He will repay the evil to my enemies. Destroy them in your truth. With a freewill offering I will sacrifice to you. I will give thanks to your name, Yahweh, for it is good. For he has delivered me out of all trouble. My eye has seen triumph over my enemies.
Psalm 55. For the chief musician on stringed instruments, a contemplation by David. Listen to my prayer, God. Don't hide yourself from my supplication. Attend to me and answer me. I am restless in my complaint and moan, because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they bring suffering on me. In anger they hold a grudge against me. My heart is severely pained within me. The terrors of death have fallen on me. Fearfulness and trembling have come on me. Horror has overwhelmed me. I said, Oh, that I had wings like a dove. Then I would fly away and be at rest. Behold, then I would wander far off. I would lodge in the wilderness. I would hurry to a shelter from the stormy wind and tempest. Confuse them, Lord, and confound their language, for I have seen violence and strife in the city. Day and night they prowl around on its walls. Malice and abuse are also within her. Destructive forces are within her. Threats and lies don't depart from her streets. For it was not an enemy who insulted me. Then I could have endured it. Neither was it he who hated me, who raised himself up against me. Then I would have hid myself from him. But it was you, a man like me, my companion and my familiar friend. We took sweet fellowship together. We walked in God's house with the throng. Let death come suddenly on them. Let them go down alive into Sheol. For wickedness is in their dwelling, in the midst of them. As for me, I will call on God. Yahweh will save me. Evening, morning, and at noon I will cry out in distress. He will hear my voice. He has redeemed my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, although there are many who oppose me. God, who is enthroned forever, will hear and answer them. They never change who don't fear God. He raises his hands against his friends. He has violated his covenant. His mouth was smooth as butter, but his heart was war. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. Cast your burden on Yahweh, and he will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be moved. But you, God, will bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloodthirsty and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in you.
Proverbs chapter 23. When you sit to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is set before you. Put a knife to your throat if you are a man given to appetite. Don't be desirous of his dainties, seeing they are deceitful food. Don't weary yourself to be rich. In your wisdom show restraint. Why do you set your eyes on that which is not? For it certainly sprouts wings like an eagle and flies in the sky.